This video is intended to describe a lightblade wand named Abundance. Joining me today will be my whimsical stick figure chakra map, which I'll be utilizing quite a bit for various chakra calm stimulation points seen on this fast tour, as well as this white leather, which eventually will be described in full notarization, as well as this rose quartz with the flower life embossed up top of it, which will eventually come into relevancy. Otherwise, I'll start on the lightblade wand itself. So first things first, I'll be discussing the blade band scaffolding seen right here as a preface, which vaguely resembles a figure eight. For the aspect of that, of course, before I discuss the particular crystalline composition for why the figure eight is being utilized to be the recontainment. So of course, with all these exotic frequencies yet to be mentioned, the aspect of having them all grounded to a single primary wire works as a main vein to have all these frequencies generate emanations in vibrational compound interest, and so the aspect of having the figure eight works as a very effective containment, recirculation of this entire energetic platform to, of course, encourage maximum efficiency for a closed-loop circuit of a very complexive consciousness-assisted device. So starting off with the transmutation ratio, which is a great place to start as a good preface and foundation of the entire construct, would be a combination of smoky quartz and hematite. Hematite is a very fantastic iron-based crystal which works very effectively to take all stray radial energies, I should say, and firmly ground it through the root chakra into the earth stars, into the earth meridian matrix for reprocessing, in tandem with smoky quartz to provide much of the same energetic function pathway stimulation to further ground all stray radial energies once again into the root chakra, into the earth stars, and into the earth meridian matrix for reprocessing. So hence the transmutation ratio are very complementary two frequencies that will serve as a scaffolding for the entirety of this quadrant right here. Underneath this lovely green leather, there indeed is the same exact ignition sequence seen here of hematite and smoke quartz, like so, staggering until it goes into this lateral band, until it goes all the way up here to this lateral band, as well as the main engine or heart band would be the same combination of hematite smoke quartz igniting like so, completing this section as well. So the aspect of why it's so crucial is having the aspect of high yield grounding encourages many aspects. So having a very strong contact patch of grounding into Mother Earth also works like etheric dialysis, I guess you could say. To firmly ground this energy to the earth also works as a very powerful way to encourage all the excess energies of this rather ambitious, vast crystalline composition to give it a very safe arcing grounding point to indeed make the magic real, as a little joke I make, to bring it firmly, this entire frequency pitch, into the earth plane for tangibility's sake of this entire emanation. So the aspect has many tiers of why it's such a staple in my life's work for this distinct purpose, but that basically sums it up, I'd say, for this entire, once again, lateral band, up the sides right here, and this band right here, being this one quadrant, as well as this apex right here of the transmutation ratio. Then going into the abundance ratio seen right here would be 8 clear quartz to be a neutral acceleration of energy, as well as the number 8 being the definitive number of abundance, which all these units of wand format have definitely shared this exact trait as well to generate vibrational compound interest. And so the aspect of these 8 clear quartz or neutral accelerants that grounded into the transmutation scaffolding runs the current like so, and of course it always runs at a very quick rev, so to speak, to recirculate and contain the excess energy of this device, but this would be the primary focus of the device, hence it's a proper entry into the abundance field of these 30 devices now in existence, with number 30 right here of exactly this ignition sequence that are literally found across the world. Starting off with golden rutilated quartz to work as a massive accelerant of this entire ignition sequence, going into peridot. Peridot is a very fantastic third and fourth chakra stimulant of earth bandwidth connotation, which also essentially works like the frequency of growth or chlorophyll caught in crystalline emanation. Hence photosynthesis, how this is all possible, can be denoted as a vibrational induction of that particular growth pattern, which is very advantageous and indicative of growth of abundance. Hence it's been employed quite religiously in this entire period for this crusade, if you would. Going into golden healer quartz, which is an incredible high heart gold white light source alignment frequency. So obviously saying that for a metaphysical and concept and vibrational engineering, to have a clean shot to the resonance heart of creation is very advantageous for any spiritual aspect or discipline. To, of course, have that in the ignition sequence of the terrestrial green heart chakra concentration, which I always continue on. But basically, that's a golden light source alignment frequency as part of the ignition sequence of the abundance ratio. Going into emerald, emerald's a very famous green ray heart chakra stone of abundance, nearly unrivaled in mineral kingdom, hence it's a true precious stone of antiquity. Literally all mortals and humans have heard of this particular crystal. Does not matter how much of a not crystal enthusiast they are. This is a precious green ray crystal that is very well stamped in the heralds of humanity's history, basically, for being a stone of precious notoriety. And for a very good reason. It is the most powerful, just about, green ray abundance frequency stimulation in the mineral kingdom. For that purpose, it's been utilized and praised for millennia. Truth be told, no exaggeration there. So the aspect also of going into golden healer quartz, golden rutilated quartz to intensify the energy of the circuit into moss green agate. Moss green agate is the most profound stabilization of water elemental heart chakra stimulation, which is basically the most stable terrestrial green ray heart chakra stimulant mineral kingdom to be bar the same heavy green ray concentration to encourage the most stabilized heart chakra, which of course governs the aspects of our physical and non-physical circulations, which also serves a quite critical role to have this great exaggeration of the heart chakra's capacity of abundance, but most importantly to stabilize it, to basically make it more energetically bioavailable, to bring the high concentration of the energy of the abundant spectrum into a very stable physical portal of the heart's chakra's capacity to carry that without distortion. Hence, it's the idea of maintaining the abundance to make it real as well, is to, of course, stabilize into it without just having a wavelength distortion throw off the entirety of the emanation of the abundance concentration. Then going into golden healer quartz, into peridot, rutilated quartz, emerald, golden healer quartz, and moss green agate, and so on, until the ignition sequence offsets and grounds back into the 8 clear quartz on the other side, grounded into the transmutation ratio to, of course, encourage the rapid grounding of this entire energy platform, to take the entire overture pitch of this entire frequency of very complex engineering and firmly ground it into the earth to make it real. And so that would be just the blade band scaffolding of the figure 8 that indeed makes it a proper entry into the abundance platform that has been quite prolifically built to this 2025. Then right here is a specialty lateral band, which is developed to, of course, ground into the transmutation ratio seen right here and have its own lateral ignition sequence, which is quite of critical nature for this exact rendition of abundance. So this entire section right here of these rutilated quartz are serving as a neutral accelerant of the energy, but most importantly, a supercharger intensification of ambient amplification or whatever frequency is in conjunction. Starting off with red jasper to be the most quintessential stabilization of the root chakra in the mineral kingdom, to bring a very strong foundation to the entire scaffolding of the root, to encourage, once again, a very healthy, stabilized disposition for this entire frequency concept. Going into rutilated quartz to intensify into seraphinite. Seraphinite is quite the amazing crystal I use quite religiously in my life's work for a distinct purpose, but long story short, it's a green ray crystal that is named after the seraphim archangels, and the reason why it's so prolifically utilized is for practical utilitarian energy capacity of being a massive full light body activator from the ground up, and works very diligently and very swiftly, like angelic rescue if you would, to rapidly dismantle any patterns of dis-ease from the entire chakra column from bottom to top, with virtually unrivaled capacity, besides the what I consider to be the Holy Trinity in conjunction, which I'll get back to very shortly here, of these particular crystals. So that I'll continue on the lateral band dissertation, but seraphinite, of course, is a very powerful alignment of the entire chakra column that is very, very, very effective for full light body activation as well, and as well as being a nice full chakra calm stimulant to encourage very smooth, compatible aspects of one's light body coherence that, of course, is basically brought down to the cellular level to radiate impeccable gold-white light health that would be indicative of one's factory blueprint setting in connection to creation, essentially. Hence why it has a very special notarization right here. To have a very big emphasis of having this lateral band right here is quite critical in really honoring the goal of this particular abundance number 30's rendition for the recipient in mind and heart. So, like I mentioned, it goes on both sides to be kind of a auxiliary energy band going into the rutilated quartz into the red jasper to further stabilize the root chakra, like so, containing its own circuit down here. So next I'll be discussing this complexive engine section, and before I do so, I'll go ahead and discuss the functionality of this white leather over here, as well as this Flower of Life rose quartz slab right here. So after this is of course all mentioned and well notarized, God willing, these will never see the light of day because this functional hood actually has maintained its purpose and is still installed. So that's why I'll discuss the hood first before I discuss the individual composition that's really what's under the hood, so to speak. But ideally, in a very aesthetic fashion, this will be installed like this, with this right here grounded into this lateral band right here to be its own conducting circuit, which kind of, as a joke, can be considered like a hood scoop, to have a nice auxiliary frequency of, most importantly, the love vibration of rose quartz being a very common, thank goodness, pink gray heart chakra stimulant of connection to divine love in that capacity. Hence, its importance of a badging is very highlighted once this guy is fully operational and notarized. But this right here has far more than aesthetic purposes, which I'll discuss right now. So the aspect of utilizing white leather also makes for a very nice full 7-ray diffusing of color therapy resonance to indeed simulate the entire rainbow spectrum of unified field white, so to speak, which is purposeful. Most importantly, down by the whole complexive engine section. Then the aspect also, it works to insulate the energy so that all these other different various crystals stacked and terminated like so are more efficient, so energy leakages are prevented and it's more efficient basically to have the energy condensed through here, through this exposed apparatus right here, which will be of course discussed momentarily, but the aspect also works to efficiently insulate it, and of course it works to protect all these subtle crystals right here as they're literally on their journey living happily ever after with the recipient, going on adventures and being wielded for those under her jurisdiction, for example. And so, of course, it's a way to protect it as well. And then, of course, it's more of the aspects of functionality, of course, of the three mentioned of color therapy, resonance, insulation, and protection for the crystals, but also, indeed, does look like a very nice completed construct once it's fully installed, up to a very aesthetically fashion, of course, like so, to kind of give an idea. But indeed, it's more than just looks. It actually indeed is a functional component in the entire construct. So I'll start off with the crystal scene right here, first things first, because I already discussed one of its members of the Holy Trinity, or the trio of Master Healer crystals I employ quite frequently. So this would be Star Argonite. So the next three crystals I'll be mentioning will be, of course, very compatible with the concepts, hence they have the same kind of energetic pathway stimulation, hence they are their holy trio of Master Healer frequencies I use quite religiously. So just like the Seraphonite mentioned, Star Argonite is a calcium-based full light body activator as well that stimulates the entire chakra column and works very diligently and smoothly, most importantly, just like this guy, to dismantle any outmottled patterns that be impeding a natural healthy flow through the entire chakra column from bottom to top. As a very, very effective full light body stimulant and, most importantly, dismantler of any stored patterns of negativity that be impeding one's healthiest flow. Much in tandem with that would be not smoky, of course, I'm sorry, Tibetan black quartz seen right here from Tibet, which has that very nice Om frequency resonance of the region of the world that has one of the most unbroken lineages of spiritual practice of connection to Om source creation. So the aspect of Tibetan black quartz, just like the other two mentioned, is also a very powerful full light biasement as well as a chakra stimulant from the bottom to top, and works very diligently, just like the other two mentioned, to dismantle any patterns that be impeding a very natural healthy flow of one's basically factory blueprint setting in connection to creation that restores the ideal energy flow. Hence, the holy trinity of master crystals I utilize are seen here, here, and here for a distinct purpose of being a very practical, utilitarian, high vibratory healing alignment, which of course can encourage the aspect of one's quantum coherence to their impeccable highest timeline, or the Holy Grail manifest, if you would be encouraged by these three crystals indeed. But there's tremendous more amount to cover to get the whole composition. And so before I go any further, of course, so discussing all these individual crystals mentioned right here stacked like this will indeed be much akin to the organs of an entity that are all pivotal and critical to function together for one comprehensive system that's operational. So all these different frequencies are terminated to the primary wire of brass, copper, and silver spooled together via drill to have vibrational compound interest on this main vein to carry the entirety of this entire complex device to be one comprehensive energetic broadcasting unit in a closed-loop reactive circuit. So starting off with this lovely clear quartz scene right here, which would be the neutral heart or engine of the entire construct as a primary, would be a very good way to, of course, have the resonance of attunement of this entire crystal pitch amplify as well as resonate with the recipient or whoever engages it for that matter, to put one in touch with their higher frequency resonance of prayers or intentions be amplified through this entire construct, which would put it in the realm of being consciousness assisted technology, derivative of one's higher spiritual nature as the piloting source, so to speak, in that capacity of their connection to their I am. Pardon me, there's a little fly going in front of my face right now. I have to swat him away because he's being very distracting, which doesn't take much in these comprehensive videos where I'm doing my best to coherently consolidate these very far out concepts to make it, ingestible. Anyhow, so speaking of very far out concepts, next right here is quite the pivotal crystal right here that is rather difficult to discuss in a very coherent, linear fashion to be pragmatically digestible, but I do my best, of course. So the aspect of this smoky celestial quartz, much like smoke quartz seen on the ignition sequence of the transmutation ratio, which is a very important scaffolding of this entire device, is the aspect also of being a fantastic rounder by itself, by its particular frequency resonance, but most importantly, it's the celestial structure that makes this quite the fascinating crystal. So what this means for the celestial structure and why it's of such large component as well as such prominent placing plays quite the critical role. The celestial quartz works as a very fantastic auto-regulator of the entire frequency pitch of any given crystal group in a closed-loop circuit, and works very, very quickly to govern the excess energy at the most comfortable reception based on their higher self blueprint to be in real-time auto-reactive to the requirements of the wielder or anybody under the jurisdiction who the being serviced to. So that's quite complicated, but you can also think of it as a surge protector to ensure that the frequency pitch is always at a very comfortable equilibrium optimum that's very, very reactive and auto-calibrative to the requirements of the wielder. So I hope that almost makes sense because I've been making these videos for a while, and this has been a very difficult one to really nail down a very streamlined because it's rather far out, but it is quite critical for the functionality of this device to indeed have a particular frequency crystal resonant pitch that most importantly aligns to the higher self of whoever wields it. And so what that means as well is that the entire crystalline frequency pitch group will react differently in the primary wielder who commissioned this device than a friend, for example, who engages it. It would change the frequency pitch very adaptively to whoever is wielding it based most importantly on their higher self blueprint and their theoretical higher self-directive spiritual equilibrium requirements. Okay, I think that basically sums it up. I'm just going to keep continuing on. So behind that celestial quartz, a very special stone called Prophecy Stone, found by a gentleman in the Libyan desert who had an unexpected massive prophetic vision. And what's fun about this guy right here, it's a sumo hematoid, much like hematite, has iron based in the structure. But the aspect of this quite fascinating is that apparently, according to science, it has metal not found in our periodic table, which makes it space metal. So, the aspect of having a very strong out-of-this-world emanation concentration is why perhaps it produces a very strong 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulation, but luckily it has a very strong iron base, which works a great contingency to take this very high-frequency crystal and firmly ground it through the Earth stars into the Earth Meridian Matrix for reprocessing. Hence, it's become quite the staple as well for just very practical, utilitarian, full light by activation that generates vibrational compound interest with the entirety of this construct. And of course, to encourage one's prophetic capacities in that regard as well. Then right here would be a very special crystal called prehnite, which is a fantastic 3rd and 4th chakra stimulant, seen like so on my whimsical map. But the aspect of prehnite being a very powerful water and earth frequency emanation is a very powerful emotional soother of old stored debris of any kind of painful concentrations of the heart chakra that would be basically quantumly incompatible with the abundance spectrum in that regard. Hence, it's been employed even a small dose right here. So obviously, there'll be certain crystals that perform the same kind of pathway function, working in compound interest together in this whole aspect, which will be pretty obvious, but I decided to mention that once again, is that a lot of these different crystals utilized are for the particular stimulation goal of a particular frequency alignment in that regard. Then right above that would be a very special piece of oceanic calcite, which I harvested myself from the Oregon coast. So calcite of the white spectrum is underrated and quite effective metaphysical healer for being once again a full rainbow spectrum white ray clear, fire elemental clear of stagnancies from the entire light body. But most importantly, why it's actually being relevant to discuss in further notarization is the aspect of the ocean has literally tumbled this thing for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. God literally knows the truth about that. So the indelible mark of the ocean's clearing capacity has been shaping this stone, which is now part of a very comprehensive unit to bring that stronger impact of oceanic clearing capacity into this device. This right here would be an aspect of what looks to be magenta fluorite, which is kind of a purplish looking reddish fluorite. So fluorite is a fantastic stone of order in the mineral kingdom that works very quickly to bring coherence to the entire wind elemental mental capacity of the third eye. So even a small dose goes a very long way of bringing impeccable coherence alignment to the aspect of, once again, the big prerogative here is to focus on the abundance spectrum of making a very strong concentration of the abundance spectrum. So little things like that help with the smoothing process and mitigate timeline whiplash. That'd be the fluorite right here. As well as Larimar, seen right here. Larimar is a very fantastic 5th and 6th chakra stimulant of both water and fire, interestingly enough. A very interesting dichotomy, polar opposite of stimulation. But the aspect of Larimar brings a very powerful soothing calming of one's 5th chakra, one's highest sovereign truth. The like an oasis of calm and a very powerful anti-anxiety frequency to be used for that purpose. That'd be, of course, diminishing false evidence appearing real, which is my favorite acronym for fear, and to, of course, be in one's highest truth and encourage more calm, soothing vibrations. In tandem with Kunzite, seen right here, a lovely pink gray lithium-based crystal, which is a very powerful soothing heart chakra stimulant of pink gray notarization of divine love, but it brings extreme calming to the heart chakra as well, which is very complementary to the heavy green ray terrestrial heart chakra stimulation to have a little dose of the pink ray. Hence, its other colleague on the matter of pink ray, rose quartz, is why it has such a large prominent badging, which will of course be a very important part of the construct's completion. Okay, so over here I'll be discussing this entire group in one shot, hence they play off each other in quite the pivotal fashion of the agates and jaspers seen right here in this quadrant. So the aspect of jasper and agate, for that matter, are the most stabilized variation of whatever frequency element or color range and or they stimulate with. Starting off with red jasper, like mentioned before, to be the quintessential earth elemental root chakra stabilizer. Going into fire agate to be the quintessential fire elemental stimulation, most importantly though, stabilization of the solar plexus, sacrum, and root chakra. In tandem with Moss green agate, once again, already mentioned up here. Moss green agate is a very fantastic water elemental green ray heart chakra stabilizer. Going into blue lace agate seen right here, which is another water elemental stabilizer of the 5th chakra. Then going into grape agate seen right here, which is a stabilization of wind of the 6th and 7th chakras. So when you take the aspect of earth, fire, water, and wind in the most stable variety possible, all terminated together to generate vibrational compound interest of the most stabilized variety of what the Lakota can consider the 4 directions of earth, fire, water, and wind, you have the backbone of this entire device, bringing a very powerful stabilization of the entire 4 terrestrial elements in that perspective. So that's why they are quite critical to discuss in one shot, and most importantly, they're the most stabilized renditions of each elemental stimulation spectrum I can get my hands on for that purpose, for longevity's sake and equilibrium. Then right here would be fulgurite. Fulgurite is a classic shamanic spirit tool used by First Nation shamans of antiquity to intensify their prayers, because that is literally the power of lightning caught in crystal, caught in a bottle. So that is a product of lightning striking sand, energizing and flash charging and literally melting this particular sand into fulgurite, which is very powerful because it literally resonates with the frequency of lightning, which is a tremendous intensification agent. Of course, literally wielding the power of lightning gets very intensive high yield resonance. So the aspect of the First Nation shamans who used to utilize this to intensify their prayers back to Creator for those under their jurisdiction to, of course, be of service to those under their jurisdiction. And the aspect of fulgurite makes for a very powerful full light body activator as well, that literally mimics the power of lightning, going from the bottom to top of the auric field, a very dynamic, rapid light body activation as well. To once again, of course, intensify the concentrated prayer of the abundant spectrum seen right here. Then going into this guy, which is black tektite, the product of nickel iron meteorite impacting sand, carrying that extraterrestrial jolt into creation that literally vaporized the sand from a high meteoric impact into the earth. So that luckily is a black ray crystal, which I kind of joke as space obsidian, if you would, that has a very powerful, luckily black ray, ground feet up, very powerful high vibrational stimulation from the foundation of the Earth stars. So this is a very fortuitous crystal I utilize quite literally in all constructs for this distinct purpose, to have a very pragmatic, practical, foundational vibrational razor, which is encouraging to the entire light body's activation as well. And like I mentioned thrice, most importantly, it's a ground up foundational vibrational raising of the entire auric field from the feet up, which is very advantageous for maintaining the impeccable goal of a fully uncompromised light body activation of high frequency emanation from the ground up, like I mentioned 5 times now. Okay, so now I'm gonna move. So that would be the entirety of the engine section, which I mentioned once again will have the white covering it. So this, God willing, will never see light day again if everything goes to plan, which most likely it will, because good things happen. So I'll be discussing the primary thumb engagement first, and I'll be employing this rock right here to help me illustrate the point. So this right here, like just mentioned, is the thumb engagement developed to have the thumb engage like so to complete the circuit right here of the hand when engaging it. So the aspect of the thumb engagement is its own little subroutine of quite the notable rocks right here. So the entirety base of this thumb engagement would be just a neutral clear quartz to be another natural ambient resonator to, of course, encourage the neutral amplification of the prayers of the wielder going through at the base of this little power pack right here, which is the thumb engagement. Then around the entire perimeter would be its own blade band of special crystals, starting off with clear quartz seen right here to be neutral accelerant of the energy, going into, once again, seraphinite as another concentration of that great seraphic healing frequency, literally named after the seraphim archangels, to be a very effective healing frequency broadcast for the engagement sequence. Going into clear quartz, then going into lapis lazuli, quite literally a favorite of millions for thousands of years, particularly ancient Egyptian utilization of mystery schools, things of that nature. But the aspect of lapis being a beautiful blue-gray crystal also has a very nice stimulation of the 5th and 6th chakras through the window mental spectrum of one's sovereign highest capacities, as well as works as a fantastic encouragement to one's siddhis or psychic gifts, to be a very powerful sovereign highest truth alignment, which effectively works very well to mitigate electromagnetic interference or ego mind identity patterns, EMI for short, that would be inhibiting one's true connection to creation, that capacity from their higher sovereign perspective. So that's why the ignition sequence like so completes the circuit, going into a very special variety of serpentine called infinitite, which is a very lovely green ray crystal that's quite rare these days, but luckily the Wheel of the Force has a way of providing me what I need for exotic compositions. So infinitite, a very special variety of serpentine from South Africa, has a very lovely green ray appearance, which has a very nice dimension of the entire chakra column, like a very powerful kundalini activator as well, just like its normal cousin of serpentine up here, which will be mentioned when I get there. But the aspect of infinitite works very effectively to dismantle any crystallized patterns through particularly the lower 3 as well as the 4th and above, but most importantly for this application, any habitual patterns in the root chakra of scarcity and pain and habitual patterns playing out get rapidly but very gently, thank goodness, cleared and basically dismantled of any stored patterns from the lower 3. Why it's so relevant to mention that is for the aspect of encouraging the embodiment of abundance and feeling good and safe, as well as the aspect of being a fantastic etheric insulation frequency, which can mitigate any kind of etheric disturbances that would frazzle the system by firmly anchoring the energy and decrystallizing patterns that would be impeding one's connection to Earth, which is our natural disposition, uncompromised. Then above that will be a very legendary crystal named Moldavite, seen right here. Moldavite is quite the famous crystal in vogue in this day and age, from various social media platforms for a good reason. It's a very, very, very powerful green ray crystal, which I use with great reverence and respect and in moderation, because it has such a powerful kick in the pants force of connection of dharmic acceleration. It's not to be underestimated. Moldavite is the quintessential green ray heart chakra stimulant of storm concentration that aligns one to creation at a very dramatic rapid rate, which is why it's quite famous, is because it's very famous for being a very rapid transition of magic that actually works no matter who it is who acquires it. That's got kind of a bad rap because people talk about how it's ruined their life because, quite simply, it makes such an acceleration to crack the eggs of the false self matrix towards one's dharmic connection to creation that it can be quite taxing on the false self matrix to hold up the story of whatever divides them from who they really are in connection to creation. But luckily, with that being said, there's many different stabilizers and grounders and transmuters to get the most out of that while mitigating the timeline whiplash that's associated with Moldavite. Hence, like I mentioned, I utilize it very sparingly and very much with great reverence and intention, with most importantly to have plenty of practical contingencies to unleash the beast, if you would, of one's rapid transition of one's highest connection to creation as quick and swift as possible. For this little guy right here holds no prisoners for that result. But in proper dosage, it's a very, very powerful crystal of synchronicity, magic, aha moments, internal resolutions, as well as external manifestations of synchronicities. It gets quite theatrical very quickly with this guy employed. But, like I mentioned thrice, all the contingencies seen right here are meant to enhance it as well as mitigate the timeline whiplash. Okay, so now I can put this rock back. Thank you very much, rock. So next we'll be discussing the components of the blade face seen right here. So both sides are as symmetrical as absolutely possible to have a very even vibration on both sides of the construct from both the right and left perspective when you engage the thumb. So they are, of course, like I mentioned, is very, very much symmetrical as possible to have the most cleanest vibrational alignment of both sides to be as efficient as possible. Starting off with another favorite crystal that is praised by millions for thousands of years will be turquoise. Turquoise is a very famous blue ray crystal of great fifth chakra concentration, but luckily it carries the energies of earth, fire, water, and wind to be the quintessential four terrestrial elements focused through the fifth chakra. And its legendary lore goes far more than just First Nation utilization. It's quite literally world famous. And if I talk about the whole thing, that probably add 10 more minutes to this video, so I'm going to go ahead and omit it. And if anybody has true interest of the mystery and history of magical utilization of turquoise, if you would, they can of course go for it on probably searching Google. But the aspect why it's important here is that turquoise is a profound stone of wholeness and truth, that it also works as a very fantastic pranic generator of encouraging one sovereign truth and bring, of course, when you know thyself, it's the greatest liberation ever, I consider. That's uncompromised in connection to creation. So that's a big aspect of why that guy's been employed. Also, it's another classic stone of abundance. World praised. So right here, this would be sunstone, which would work like the yang to the yin of the green ray high concentration. So the aspect of abundance being a very powerful heart chakra, solar plexus stimulation tandem right here brings the abundance frequency a very, very high intake point. The sunstone has been utilized just like this on many, basically virtually, actually I take it back, all the renditions of abundance have had sunstone for this distinct yang purpose. So sunstone's a fantastic solar plexus and sacrum stimulant that is very, very nice feldspar-based, very grounded vibration of sunny energy. So it makes one feel very good, very blessed, and very, very positive, and very sunny and fuzzy, basically. So that's why that'd be considered part of the yang to the yin of the high intake of the green ray. The yang right here, of course, if you feel good and you are encouraged and feel creative to do good things and feel like good things can happen to you, that would encourage the output of the vibration of abundance spectrum, so that obviously the intake of making a full circle would be highly encouraged by feeling good, good things happen. Quantum coherence. The entanglement probability of one's alignment of feeling good, like good things can happen, is also very much a part of the abundance spectrum by raising the patterns of judgment to joy, liberation, openness, benevolence. Sunstone is truly a fantastic crystal for that very yang, I guess you could say positive masculine concept of abundance in that regard as well. Then, in tandem, is a very special crystal called Libyan gold tektite, which could be considered a gold ray cousin to this guy right here, moldavite. Libyan gold tektite, found in desert Libya, was actually utilized by the pharaohs of old to be carved into scarab beetles for their magi breastplates of antiquity, which were of course indicative of the badge of their office of being the magi god king manifest. So this crystal right here has very, very powerful energy emanation connotations. Libyan gold tektite stimulates the sacrum and the solar plexus, much like its cousin, like not even close, I take it back, much like sunstone, not even close to a vibrational cousin in this application, and has a very powerful gold ray of illumination manifestation frequency that was utilized by the pharaohs of antiquity and the magi, for the matter, or the priestess caste as well, to intensify their intention of unsurpassed gold ray of illumination, which would serve the entire light body field as well, which makes it a quintessential dharmic accelerant to intensify one's connection to their divine sovereign capacity, as well as on a practical pragmatic level, a very powerful manifestation solar plexus stimulant, virtually unrivaled mineral kingdom, to intensify one's will of their creations of manifesting the abundance they so desire, which of course is their natural birth quantum inheritance. So in that capacity, it's a very powerful, sovereign, very high yield creativity and solar plexus liberation frequency, which works as a tremendous dharmic accelerant of one's golden white light ray illumination through the entire auric field, and a very, very powerful positive energy for that regard. Then above that, to kind of cool off the fire right here, would be lepidolite. Lepidolite is a purple ray water elemental frequency, ironically enough, that is a high lithium potassium based crystal, which works as a very, very powerful extreme soother of the nervous system and the emotional body and all the bodies for that matter simultaneously, which brings an extreme oasis of calm. Perhaps the most powerful anti-anxiety frequency I've ever utilized in great success and concentration can be denoted to lepidolite seen right here. So obviously, if you have a very anti-stress vibration frequency emanation, that encourages more of the natural quantum inheritance of one's God-given connection to creation of abundance, to of course encourage the reception of that by mitigating old patterns of stress, fear, and anxiety of any variety that be producing any kind of heart-mind discoherence, which is a big aspect also of the abundance frequency, is to encourage that very high yield green ray heart chakra activation, is to encourage one's true, unobstructed alignment to their highest path, with the energy of creation itself being the heart of the force, if you would, being the primary focus in that regard. So lepidolite is a very fantastic soothing frequency, and since it's a potassium based, it also has a very nice physical body resonance that brings a very calming energy to the nervous system, like I mentioned. And also lithium is the most soothing vibration possible pretty much for the entirety of the nervous system as well, so that's why that's there. Then right here, like mentioned down here, is 2 more pieces of oceanic calcite to further encourage the clearing capacity with oceanic clearing additions to the imbuement of this frequency right here, to encourage rapid clearing of old patterns that be dismantling the frequencies that would be blocking the God-given abundance in the first place. Then the very apex right here would be a lovely piece of serpentine, actually here from Mount Shasta in my backyard, to be quite specific. And so that aspect also brings a nice concentration dose of Mount Shasta vibration. And so right here, serpentine, luckily, very locally sourced, literally right from that riverbed over here at this time of this video, is a very fantastic full Kundalini stimulant as well at full chakra calm aligner and a cellular respiration frequency that is a Mount Shasta special. So that would be almost all of the crystals except for the selenite, the kyanites, and the focalizers. And before I continue forward, I'll discuss the wood ray composition. So this aspect right here is actually cedar wood that comes from a very special source who the recipient and commissioner of this device actually gave me the cedar. So this is the core of the cedar wood that was very special ancient grandfather elder that she made good friends with while she was here in Mount Shasta. So that's the core of that guy. Then down here would be the secondary core screwed into the primary core of oak. Actually, coming from my good oak buddy right over here, the tip of this pen, that drops oak on the ground occasionally when I need it. When I utilize to sand into the core of any given device. So that'd be a combination of oak wood and cedar wood. Oak wood is quite the strong, vibratory, dense wood, hence it's a dense grain, quite famous in various circles, as well as cedar has great amount of metaphysical history tied to it as well, but I'll just go ahead and continue on because it's only turning into be almost 45 minutes for this video. I'll stay on target for that, but basically the wood has now been notarized. So back to what's important here. So these aspects I always save for last for these description videos, be a comprehensive capstone of the selenite seen right here, which has been sanded in adherence with the wooden core for a distinct purpose. So selenite by itself is a very, very fantastic master healer in that regard, for being a very powerful 6th, 7th, 8th, all the non-physical chakras stimulant all the way back to one's Godhead in connection to their divine template. So that aspect also makes for a very powerful 2-way broadcast induction of one's oversoul, higher self, if you would, that goes into connection to one's conscious self, which is very advantageous for the true spiritual adept, obviously. But with that high frequency induction also makes for a very high divine transmutation of stagnant energy through the entire auric field to dismantle any patterns of dis-ease as well. So that makes it truly a tremendous master healer in that regard of one's divine connection and also that high divine transmutation, burning off stagnant energies. But where it always shines in this near 45 minutes of this crystalline discussion to myself with a cell phone, with this lightblade wand, is right here. So all these crystals mentioned thus far for this whole dissertation, with this whole complex subroutine right here, are running through a closed-loop reactive circuit. So the selenite right here plays quite the critical role in the aspect of taking all of these crystals seen here and purifying all of these crystals in a reactive circuit, as well as amplifying or intensifying all of these crystals in a closed-loop reactive circuit. And perhaps most important would be also the harmonization and equilibrium of the entire crystalline group as well. So let me summarize that triumphant trifecta of the concepts of the purification of all these crystals, the amplification, intensification, and the harmonization of all these crystals in the equilibrium of all of them always makes for the triumphant trifecta that makes it a staple in literally whatever device passes through my hands into distribution must have this particular frequency for that distinct purpose to put one in touch with their divine connection and make this a more efficient spirit tool for practical application of service. So that'd be the selenite. Next, I'll be discussing the 4 spectrums of kyanite seen right here, starting with black kyanite. So before I continue further, kyanites, in my humble opinion, are the most rapid transferers of energy in the mineral kingdom. Hence, their employment with the selenite is quite crucial for what I consider to be a functional spirit tool. So the aspect of black kyanite is the most rapid transfer of black ray energy in the mineral kingdom. So I'll be using my pen quite whimsically to illustrate of the rapid transfers of energy of black kyanite serving like a surge protector to rapidly encourage the energy of the entire structure to rapidly discharge in the earth at the quickest rate absolute possible in the mineral kingdom. Then above that would be the orange kyanite, which rapidly transfers the sacrum to the highest capacity to one's creative nature in connection to the divine blueprint, as well as green kyanite, which do the most rapid transfer of heart blockages for that matter example, for intake, output simultaneously. Then in tandem with blue kyanite to be the most rapid transfer of neuropathway energy stimulation of the right and left hemispheres of the awakened third eye. So obviously the left and right hemispheres have cross interference from being a human. It just happens, is what happens when you're a human. So when you have the rapid alignment of the 2 in tandem of the third eye chakra being aligned of right and left whole brain thinking or mental impeccable coherence, blue kyanite rapidly engages that capacity to one's dark blueprint as well. So naturally, like everything else mentioned thus far, they work very synergistically with vibrational compound interest to ensure the most rapid rerouting, buffering, transfers of energy in the mineral kingdom possible to indeed encourage, once again, the transference of this energy of the entire broadcast, which also serves like another layer of etheric Teflon, if you would, of aligning and dismantling old patterns that be impeding one's growth to, once again, back to Dharmic factory blueprint setting of who they are in truth, the connection and creation at a very quick, rapid rate. These right here will be the focalizers. So obviously with this 47-minute now rant, this entire construct is in a closed loop reactive circle, all these different variables. So these have been mounted on top of the primary abundance blade band to be the focalizers or focus of the energy. So back here would be titanium aura quartz, which is actually a modern alchemical man-made crystal that has been clear quartz pressure coated with titanium. Titanium is a very powerful metal metaphysically, so the clear quartz works to naturally amplify the titanium structure, which works as a full rainbow light body spin as well as a very powerful physical energizer and a very strengthening, empowering frequency to encourage one's sovereign dynamic pattern, as well as it works as a very powerful strengthener behind the clear quartz seen right here, which has been mentioned a few times now. Is that clear quartz is the most neutral ambient energy that can hold a current very well. It is very also subject to further amplification of impulses of energy, such as a prayer, for example, to make it relevant. So when engaged, it's designed, of course, to take the focus of the energy, ground it into this primary wire, and give it a sharper broadcast focus. So, for example, my good one-legged buddy out there, pointing at right here, discharges energy like so, and of course, the frequency can be amplified with intention, for example, and then directed more easily with the focalizers to make a entrainment connection, or an alignment, if you would. So, that would be the entirety of the crystal composition of abundance. So as a summary, obviously it's quite diverse in its various crystalline allies, generating the vibrational compound interest, which obviously is my favorite word, because it's fantastic and it really gets the point across. But in the aspect of the overview of this entire device, obviously it's quite diverse in its stimulation pathways, where literally every single aspect of the chakra calm is being addressed in high efficient unison, at least as far as my life's work has provided to get to this point. And the Very dynamic stabilization and full light blade stimulation has quite the versatile utilization, but the big aspect once again is that hence the name and abundance dubbed of Abundance of the 30th rendition indeed puts this as another very competitive, dramatic entry into the Abundance Crusade of 2025, and the comprehensive 30th rendition seen right here to be a very, very heavy concentration of the emanation of abundance, of the very high yield, stabilized heart chakra stimulation of what would be considered the most ideal abundance spectrum, which has been a pretty good contending performer, to put it very lightly. Anyway, well, that'd be Abundance 30. 1,000 blessings, and may the force be with us all.